Are you ready for day 2 of invention-con 2020? Our first panel will discuss government resources. You will discover valuable services that can help you get support for your intellectual property or developing your small business. The panel will be moderated by Wayne Stacy, Director of the Silicon Valley, United States Patent and Trademark Office. Wayne, are you ready?
I am.
So let's get started.
Well, good morning, everyone. We have 3 individuals outside of the Patent Office with us today. Each will talk about their own agency, but rather than go through me introducing them and the dreariness of listening to one person introduce another, what I thought I'd do is I'll tell you a little bit who I am and then what you're going to get out of today's panel, and then let these panelists talk about what they do and the amazing work that their agencies do that many of us may not know about or hear about for the first time today. So the goal for today's panel is to share with everyone the wide number of resources that the federal government has for innovators and small business concerns. What we've found through the years is that a lot of these programs go underutilized because people don't know that they exist. And if you know that they exist, the wonders of the internet will expose you to so much information, but you have to know what to ask for first. And that's why we try to work together so that we can share information about other programs that aren't necessarily the ones that we administer ourselves in our particular agencies. So as Dennis mentioned in the introduction, my name is Wayne Stacy. I'm the director of the Silicon Valley branch of the United States Patent and Trademark Office. We service the entire West Coast, Arizona, Nevada, Alaska, and Hawaii. There are actually several offices, 5 of us across the country, that help spread the work of the United States Patent Office to the local stakeholders. But our main mission is to try to connect innovators and entrepreneurs with government resources so they can continue their journey on developing products and developing their business. With that in mind, I would like to turn it over to the individual panelists and start working through these other agencies. And at the end, I'll explain how the Patent Office as a whole brings all of these resources together to help try to connect everyone. With that in mind, maybe we start with the Office of Innovation and Entrepreneurship out of the Economic Development Administration. And to you, Craig.
Hey, thanks, Wayne. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone on the call today. Really excited to be here. My name is Craig Buerstatte. I'm the Director for EDA's Office of Innovation and Entrepreneurship. So I focus on innovation and entrepreneurship for the Economic Development Administration. We look at innovation as a tool to create new businesses. Those businesses create new jobs, and therefore those jobs can stimulate local economies. So I'm excited to connect with you all because I'm hoping that you're on that journey. You are taking your ideas and moving them into action and building new businesses and strengthening our local economies. I manage a suite of programs that supports innovation centers, business incubators, entrepreneurship mentorship programs, and things like that. So I think what you should think about as far as EDA goes, we do not support the individual inventor or business owner directly, but rather we try to fund and support programs that will help them take those ideas from concept into a viable business, and from a viable business to a scalable business. And I'll talk more about those programs later. But again, EDA, we're looking at inventions as a tool for economic development, and how we support that is through intermediaries like business accelerators and incubators. Thanks, Wayne.
There we go. There's the first mute problem for the panel. So Joann, would you like to address the Minority Business Development Agency and what they can do for the community?
Who we are and what we do for the more than 11 million minority business enterprises throughout the nation. I'd like to share a little bit about who we are and how we help firms. First, the vision of Mbda is economic prosperity for all American businesses. We are the only federal agency that is specifically designed to foster the growth and global competitiveness of these firms. Our passion is to compete globally, minority business enterprises, and to put them on a journey of continuous transformation. Our core business is advising these firms through business transformation. Our impact is centered on facilitating access to capital, access to contracts, and access to market opportunities. I will share with you a little bit more about that later in my presentation. I would also like to share that the agency has a footprint of more than 50 business centers, as well as, I call them franchise model business centers, as well as specialty centers and projects. Those business centers are located throughout the nation. We have 26 of them. We have 4 advanced manufacturing centers located throughout America. We have 4 national export centers. We also have a federal procurement center. We have a program, a project initiative that is specifically focused on American Indian, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian entities. And we also have several specialty initiatives that we're very proud of that have gained a lot of great support and traction since launching them, one of which is the Entrepreneurship for Formerly Incarcerated Persons, Global Women of Color, and a Minority Group Equity Fund initiative that is a $1 billion fund that is underway with raising $1 billion plus to invest in minority business enterprises and those that have these wonderful inventions. The agency I would be remiss if I did not mention that the agency received an appropriation of $10 million to provide additional support for minority business enterprises that have been impacted by COVID-19 and other disruptions. We have disseminated that funding throughout the nation to those 24 of our business centers and 5 national minority chambers of commerce, including African American chambers, the Asian American Chamber National again, as well as the Hispanic National Chamber of Commerce. We also have an Office of Native American Affairs and Business Development. That office specifically targets helping Native American firms who have business ideas, concepts that they're looking to expand upon, especially the larger ones that are growing, Alaska Natives in particular, that are constantly generating new and innovative business concepts. Many of them have had to pivot their business models, all things considered. I would also like to just mention that the agency is working very closely with Amazon Business on a minority business and technology initiative where we will expect to have greater feedback from MBEs who have innovative concepts where they're seeking to protect their intellectual property. And we'll be leveraging our collaboration and partnership with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office to ensure that this happens. We will also continue to lean into our collaboration with the Patent and Trademark Office with exports as we continue to push, promote, and support the growth of U.S. firms internationally. Again, with these firms being the fastest demographic of business growth in America, we know that we're going to continue to leverage our partnership with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. Our plan is winning the future now. We are experiencing the highest rate of change and innovation that's continuing to disrupt every industry here in America. We have three pillars as it relates to our Winning the Future Now theme, and they are centered on digitalization, globalization, and helping MBEs to expand through competitiveness. With that, I'd like to make one last plug. The agency, Mbda, is getting ready for its signature event of the year. That's the National Minority Supplier Development Council, the National Minority Enterprise Development Week, excuse me. We are partnering with the National Minority Supplier Development Council to promote this event. We have what's called a Buy MBE Day. That's a part of that this year. This will be an inaugural launch for us for this initiative. But to learn more about that, I would encourage you to visit mbda.medweek.gov. I'll talk more about that as I get into my questions, but I felt compelled to share with you that is a week-long event that is held annually, and we typically pull in a number of federal partners like the U.S. Patent and Trademark, along with others, to promote a whole of commerce approach to all of the great resources that we offer, and our other partners like the Small Business Administration to be a part of this. And again, it's an honor to be here with you today, and I'm looking forward to the dialogue. Thanks so much.
Thank you, and that's a perfect segue. You mentioned the SBA, and with us we have George, who there's a lot in his title. I'm not sure which pieces to necessarily get, but there are two pieces in particular. He comes from the Small Business Administration, and most notably, he is the Associate Administrator for the Small Business Development Centers that are around the country. An amazing resource. So George, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you can help.
So I'm George Koklanaris, and I am the Associate Administrator here at the SBA, and my portfolio is Small Business Development Center. So at the SBA, we have three main buckets. Obviously, the biggest bucket is what most people know us for, and that is access to capital, or the SBA loan, and that's become even more important during the pandemic. Everyone is now familiar with the Paycheck Protection Program, or PPP as it's known here, as well as the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, or EIDL as it's known around here. So those two loans, in addition to what is known as your grandfather's small business loan, those have become enormously important here, and have actually taken up the bulk of the agency's time trying to get out as many resources through those two loan programs and advances through those two loan programs to basically help small businesses keep their employees on their payrolls and to actually keep the small businesses from closing. We have done that through a variety of vehicles. We have 68 district offices that are SBA district offices throughout the country, and the larger states have several district offices. We have 10 regional offices, and if you know the college football conferences, you can basically see the different conferences throughout the country, and those different states feed into like a Midwestern or a Southeastern, or if you know the Pac-10 or all those other conferences. So you can see those hub and spokes that the district offices will feed into a regional office. In addition to that, we use a lot of resource partners. So you may be familiar with something known as SCORE, which are retired executives that help small businesses and entrepreneurs who have great ideas, but don't necessarily have a lot of the business know-how. We use SCORE. We also have one specific to just helping women. Those are known as Women's Business Centers, and we have quite a few of those throughout the country. We have an office that is geared for veterans, and they have offices throughout the country as well. And then we have the largest resource partner program, which is actually my program, called the Small Business Development Centers. Now, the Small Business Development Centers actually have over 900 offices throughout the United States, and we have them in all of the insular territories as well, with the exception of the Mariana Islands. So just about anywhere you go, you can find an SBDC. There are 62 lead SBDCs. We have one in each state. And in states like California or Texas, we have several lead centers. And again, similar to how we do the district offices to the regional offices, it's very much a hub and spoke as well. So with 62 lead centers, you can imagine if we've got over 900 offices, that many of them will have anywhere from 8 to 10 to 20 SBDCs that feed into those lead centers. Most of the time, when somebody thinks of the SBA in terms of counseling or training, they're actually not going into an SBA office, they're actually going into an SBDC office. And most of the SBDCs are located on college campuses. We are partnered with universities and colleges, as well as in several states, we're actually partnered with the state governments themselves. Most of your counseling and training that any small business or entrepreneur will get will actually happen at an SBDC, and that's what we do. Now, specific to intellectual property and innovation and those types of things that we're going to be discussing today, we have 20 SBDC lead centers that actually have a technology designation or a T designation, and they are able to provide a wealth of training and opportunities for small businesses that dealing with technology and those types of things. We've got an office here that we'll talk more about when we do the question and answer session called SBIR, which is Small Business Innovative Research, and Small Business Technology Transfer, or STTR. And that office deals specifically with it's basically the government's incubator or accelerator, however you want to describe it, all these terms we now use, but it's basically the small business technology grants that we have, so small businesses can also take part of all the different technology aspects that we have across the federal government. We do the policy here for SBIR and STTR, which we'll get a little bit deeper into at the SBA, but most of that is actually done through agencies where there's a lot of technology that goes on, such as the Department of Defense or Health and Human Services. Everyone is familiar with the National Institutes of Health. They have a lot of these technology pieces. So I look forward to the question and answer session. I can see the colleagues that I'm going to be working with are quite bright and have a lot to say, so I think this will be a good session.
Well, thank you, George. And let me talk a little bit about the regional offices and kind of where the USPTO fits in this entire ecosystem. I am relatively new to the federal government and the USPTO. I spent almost 25 years in private legal practice focusing on emerging companies. So what I learned is that in seeing all sorts of companies emerge and many submerge, they go up and down. But what I learned is that patents, trademarks are one piece of the larger puzzle in building a company and making innovation work. So that's why you have the multiple agencies, from capital to support on business strategies, to what we do at the USPTO, and that is help protect the innovation itself and give you a chance to build your company out. So what do we do at the patent office as a whole in terms of helping entrepreneurs, and then what does the regional office do? So let me start. With the regional office, one of our main missions is to get information into the hands of people that maybe don't otherwise have the information about how to file for a patent, when to file for a patent, or trademark, how to file for trademark, and then how to help minimize some of the fees that often come with using outside counsel. I know from my old private practice, lawyers are expensive. So we try to help adjust on and adapt on those types of things through very specific training events that are held throughout the country. And in the present world, we're moving to more and more virtual. Actually, we're completely virtual now, but we're working on better distribution, getting material to more people in more places. And what I would mention are 5 very specific things that we're doing to help with small companies and maybe first-time business owners and people developing out their first set of inventions. One, and all of this is there on the website. It goes with the theme of if you know about it, you can find it very quickly with a Google search. So the Patent Trademark Resource Centers. These are located in libraries around the country. These librarians have subscribed and been through an incredible training process and are incredibly dedicated to helping entrepreneurs that come in search the patent office's records, and they get to use the tools that are almost identical to what our patent examiners use, so you can understand whether your patent application maybe is worth filing, or you can understand what other people have innovated in that particular industry, all with the guidance of a highly trained librarian that understands those systems. So you can look on our website, you can find those particular libraries around the country. We're adding new libraries every quarter, even through the pandemic, as we're bringing people online. The second one I would point out is this incredible partnership with law schools and these law school clinics that have opened up around the country to provide free legal services to innovators. Each school has its own application process, and it's a needs-based program. But those clinics can do two things. One, if you're accepted into the program, we authorize them to practice before the United States Patent Office and represent entrepreneurs and small businesses. So that's piece one. Piece two is even if they can't help you directly, they do have limited resources. They can help point you to the other resources that are available at the Patent Office and these other agencies represented on the panel here today. The third piece is the Patent Pro Bono Program. This is a group of attorneys around the country. There are 22 regional programs that have grouped together to offer pro bono services because, again, the legal services are often the most expensive piece, not the patent office fees, to help people get their first and second patent applications put together and online and get everything filed. And, you know, if you search on the PTO website, you'll find those programs and find the one in your region and the application process. Knowing that not everything is patent, there's also a Trademark Assistance Center that's been set up. It's got a toll-free number. And they can't provide legal advice, but they can guide you through a lot of the process for what it means to file a patent or trademark application. Also, I guess very importantly for the Trademark Assistance Center is they can point you to resources and videos that help guide you through the process. So it is a great kind of traffic direction mechanism. And the final piece that I'd encourage you to take a look at is the Inventors Assistance Center. This center is staffed by former supervisory patent examiners, kind of the highest level patent examiner in the patent office, and primary examiners. So very senior level examiners, and they're there to help people. Again, they can't give legal advice, but they can help guide you through the process, point you in the right directions. And the last thing I would leave you with is you go back to the Patent Trademark Resource Centers, those libraries. Those librarians are also equipped to help point you to licensed attorneys, licensed patent agents that can help you with patent applications. Now, they're not going to recommend individuals for you, but they can show you who's in your area and the kind of work that they do. So with that, I'd like to turn to the Q&A session. We've got a few questions in, unless anybody had anything they wanted to add before that started.
Nothing from me.
So I've got a couple here. One, so this is for you, Joann. How has your agency leveraged its partnership with the USPTO to help a client who has concerns with protecting their IP? And do you have any examples of how people could do that?
Okay, Wayne, thank you. Yes. One of the ways in which we've done that is in the past we have intentionally collaborated with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office to participate in national events. We've also, such as National Med Week, events that have been held most recently over the past year. with U.S. Black College, historic Black colleges and universities. We did that huge event, I think it was down in Austin, Texas, where there were over 6,000 MBEs and major corporations that participated in that event. And then we also continue to expose our national network of business centers that I have oversight of the 50 that I mentioned, the 50 footprints, and making certain that they are aware of the resources that are available and how to access those, because they're the ones on the ground that are helping these firms that need assistance.
Perfect. The next one comes in for you, Craig. I think it's a follow-up. You mentioned that you don't, or your agency doesn't provide direct funding to individuals. So can you explain how people can access your resources through the grantees?
Yeah, thanks, Wayne. That's a great reminder or opportunity for me to clarify. Similar to George and his footprint and Jones, the support centers that so many of us have are well represented in EDA's portfolio as well. If you check out our flagship innovation and entrepreneurship program, it's called Build to Scale. You can go to eda.gov/OIE/build to scale. And you'll see some examples of the types of incubation centers, business support centers that we fund. And their mission is to mentor and enable entrepreneurs and innovators. So while we don't have resources directly for the inventor, the organizations that we fund across the nation are certainly specialists in their respective industries and regions in building businesses in today's economy. I mentioned specialists because I think that's an important thing that we look for in our partners and our grantees. And that might be specialists in agriculture technology or advanced manufacturing and fabrication, or clean technology like solar, wind, things like that. We have incubation centers and grantees focused on all the industries that you can imagine, all the industries right now that are innovating. I think collectively in the Build to Scale portfolio alone, we've made roughly $225 million in investments across well over 200 different organizations from Alaska down to Puerto Rico. So you can check out our grants there. And it might be a good starting point for you to discover a support center, discover a program where you could find some mentorship and support infrastructure for you to help take your idea from that concept phase to validation and scale. I hope that's helpful. Again, eda.gov/OIE, which stands for Office of Innovation and Entrepreneurship, /build to scale. We have a number of different grant programs as well that support innovation centers in different ways. But I think that's probably the most relevant one for this audience today. Thanks.
So the next one comes in for George, related to the SBA, and the question is how can an entrepreneur or small business participate in the federal research and development that you mentioned?
Yeah, so there are 11 agencies again where you can apply for these SBIR, or small business innovation research grants, or small business technology transfer grants. And you can go to our website, which is Small Business Administration, or SBA.gov. And then in the search, go to SBIR or STTR. And we have actually a pretty robust website that'll walk people through it. But in short, we've got a $4 billion budget across the federal government, across 11 federal agencies. And again, the agencies, as you would think, given that it's these are R&D grants, are primarily in the Department of Defense, the Department of Energy, the National Science Foundation, the Department of Health and Human Services, which under HHS is the National Institutes of Health. And if you have a viable idea, you can oftentimes get a grant, and we do it in 3 phases for SBIR. So the first phase is somewhere between $50,000 and $250,000 for the SBIR piece, that's 6 months. For the STTR phase, that's 1 year. If it can show commercial viability and something that is viable for the federal government, you can move into phase 2. Phase 2, you can get a grant for up to $750,000 for 2 years. And then by phase 3, we should already see some true level of viability where the commercialization is there. There is a small chance that you can also get phase 3 money, but usually by phase 3, your idea has already taken off. With the STTR piece, you also have to be able to show some sort of a correlation between the partnership of that small business and the nonprofit institution. But if you have an idea that you think could be viable in one of those agencies, you've gone on our website, you have a pretty good feeling, go then to sbdc.org. And again, we've got 900 offices throughout the country. You can schedule an appointment and go into one of the SBDCs, ask to speak to somebody who has a technology designation in their business advisory portfolio, and they'll start getting you on the path, mirroring you up with a federal agency where there could be a viable solution between your idea and what one of those agencies is doing.
Well, the next question looks like it comes in directly for me, and it's, can an innovator file directly, I would assume a patent application over the counter at one of the regional offices? And the answer is no. It's set up to handle electronically for all the filing as it relates to the regional offices. The second follow-up to that is, can an inventor have a direct 1-hour interview in person there? And that is a great question. One of the things the regional offices offer is the chance to meet one-on-one with an examiner or a trademark specialist. And of course, with this current situation, those face-to-face meetings aren't going forward, but we are doing them virtually. So you can schedule that 1-hour interview virtually. So it is, or however long it needs to be, but you can get that one-on-one meeting through our website. Okay, so looks like we have the next question, you, Joann, about, it just relates directly to the current pandemic situation. Is the national network of MDBA business centers open? And can I schedule an appointment?
Absolutely. They are open for business and ready to serve. I believe I sent you a copy of our presentation deck for those that are listening in and participants that are joining us today virtually to share contact information on how to access any one of our business centers nationally. They are open for business though, absolutely.
Well, then the follow-up question for that is, what is the typical size of a client that would seek assistance from Mbda?
Sure. So our target client size is minority-owned firms that are generating at least $1 million or more in revenues. We are very strategic. We're a small agency. We don't have the budget of some of our federal partners that we collaborate with. But what we do is we try to be masterful at how we leverage collaboration with our federal partners that offer resources that we can't to those smaller firms that are less than $1 million or more in revenues, such as our friends over at the SBA. And And we also collaborate very closely with our sister agency, EDA, on various initiatives that help smaller firms throughout the nation.
Craig, one question that came in for you. Looks like somebody may already be following those links that you handed out, but they specifically ask about the term scalable startup. So the question is, your program Build to Scale talks about scalable startups. What does that mean?
Thanks, Wayne. That's a great question. The Build to Scale program, the brand itself, I think is quite helpful. It communicates that EDA is interested in building regional economies through scalable startups. And on the top of this call, I mentioned our interest in supporting entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs are those the ones that are creating businesses. Those businesses are creating new jobs, and those jobs are creating economic vitality. And we do that. Ultimately, if we're doing that well, we're creating stronger regional economies. And the businesses that have the biggest impact as far as jobs, wages, and workforce trajectory are scalable businesses. So while Main Street businesses are critical to a thriving, diverse economy, scalable businesses, those that might have products, manufacturing needs, et cetera, that are going to build large SKUs of offerings, services that may be sold around the world, those are ones that can really change a trajectory of a regional economy. So scalable in this instance, we do not have a black and white definition, as that might mean something different for each industry or every region, but typically a scalable business, we emphasize, should be focused on regional, then national, and maybe even international growth in various stages of the business's growth. A Main Street business, whether it's a restaurant, barbershop, et cetera, that would not be consistent with our interests around scalable businesses, unless there was maybe an interesting use of technology and a way to scale that type of service or product offering, which is not unheard of. I think one example of that is top of mind right now when I think about a scalable business that modified maybe a typical smaller business. It was Uber, and how it reimagined our public transit infrastructure, where what people might have had a small taxi fleet of taxis for a small business in the city, Uber has disrupted that and built a very scalable business infrastructure around maybe a more typical small business infrastructure. Hope that helps clarify. We do have a number of grant programs, or I should say grants, that have supported small business development centers, but typically we leave that to our colleagues at SBA and Mbda, and we focus on this scalable sweet spot of regional economies.
So there's a question in here for me about the law school clinics. And the question was, do they also support trademark work? And the answer is yes, some of them do. And then the follow-up question that was posted was, how do you go about contacting these law school clinics? The easiest way to get there is to determine who does what is you can go to the USPTO website under law school clinics. It'll show you which schools are participating. But then you have to go to the individual schools and go to their website, because they run the program themselves. The USPTO authorizes them and authorizes the students to practice under the supervision of a licensed attorney. So the best thing to do is go to the local law schools and look at their procedures. They do have some timing requirements that tend to correspond with the academic calendar year. So Joann, question came in. Where can I learn more about the Global Women of Color program you mentioned? Can you please repeat the website of the event coming up?
Absolutely. So you can learn more about it on our website at mbda.gov. And the website for National MedWeek is mbda.medweek.gov. It is an expanded list of events and activities that runs the gamut. It also, again, highlights the Buy MBE Day that will be launched on that Saturday, September 19th.
So this one got to be for you, George, based on the letters here. Sometimes I'm having to parse and figure out which questions go where. But this is where do SBDCs typically connect with businesses?
Normally, we do it in a variety of ways. We have a lot of outreach events that we do throughout the country, throughout the communities. When you have over 900 offices, you have quite a bit of reach. So we do a lot of outreach events. The SBDCs have a variety of classes that they post online, how to market your business, everything from cybersecurity to intellectual property. And I actually, so you can either call an SBDC directly, find us on the website, go to the SBA's website or the sbdc.org website directly. But I also want to make sure that I leave the viewers with some important information, and that is how often we collaborate with a lot of these different agencies to put on these different workshops or outreach events. Since we're talking about obviously intellectual property and those types of things, we oftentimes have representatives from USPTO that will do webinars with the SBDCs or in person pre-COVID, and we'll continue to do that post-COVID, where if the class, say for instance, is on intellectual property or on technology or SBIR grants, we'll have people from different agencies, to include USPTO's regional staff, that will actually come out and we'll do the event together. And a lot of times these events will have a couple of hundred people, depending on the size or on the type of event that it is and the market that it's in. You can have several hundred people. We have a technology-driven focus out in Northern California, as you would expect, given the Silicon Valley. And sometimes we have several hundred people there. USPTO will partner with us. They'll send out a representative and they'll do an in-person training session with everybody. So, it's important to remember that we're not doing these things just in, our little boxes, that we're oftentimes collaborating, and we do a lot of collaboration with USPTO directly. In fact, I'm actually working on an MOU right now with USPTO to do just that.
Well, George, that brings up an interesting point on collaboration. How do you end up working with the universities and their tech transfer offices?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
There was a question that came up on how you end up working with universities and their technology transfer offices to help move technology to small businesses.
Yeah, so again, because almost all of the SBDC offices are actually located on either college campuses or university campuses, that interplay exists on almost a daily basis. There's usually within the SBDC networks themselves on these campuses, relationships within relationships. The SBDCs are usually housed in as part of the business schools, but they have a lot of relationships with the law schools there, with the computer science departments, and it is that kind of interplay where they oftentimes develop different courses. For instance, if we get a lot of traffic in a particular market or a particular geography on, we'll use intellectual property, that there's a lot of need or a lot of interest, then within the university and within the SBDC, they'll take professors and other subject matter experts to come together and help put together a course. And then we'll also further partner with, say, the Department of Commerce out in the region, or maybe if it's an ag issue, USDA, or in this issue, since it's technology and intellectual property, with USPTO, and they'll put together the whole training platform that way. So then when they deliver something, whether it's a webinar or whether it's in person,
it'll look very similar to how we're doing it now, where different people, both from within the university or within the SBDC or within another federal agency or including a state agency, will each have their part in putting this together.
Well, this would be something for all three of you to discuss about any type of fast track programs or special programs for COVID-related businesses.
I can start. Mine's a little bit easier and shorter answer since EDA doesn't work with businesses directly. And again, our focus is on enabling the community leaders like those business support centers, incubation centers, the universities, community colleges, and HBCUs. Our programs, we do have some kind of fast track like incentives, but not directly for the businesses because our grant tools don't go to that individual inventor. So we're doing our best to get our resources out as quickly as possible to our community partners, but probably less relevant for this team. But just know that our partners are great resources for you. So that list that I shared earlier, again, you go to eda.gov/OIE/build to scale. You can see lists of our grantees and where you might be able to access some resources specific to your needs as an inventor.
George, you want to go next?
Yeah, so specific to COVID, we actually got a very large grant under what is known as the CARES Act. A big piece of the CARES Act was obviously also under the SBA, and that's the well-known Paycheck Protection Program. But they gave a large grant specifically to the SBDCs to ensure that we were able to get out additional resources, additional counseling and training to help alleviate the small businesses' challenges with COVID. And we've used that money over a variety of different ways. We've hired a lot of subject matter experts on how to take brick and mortar small businesses and to expand their online footprint so that they continue to operate in an online environment, since they had to close their many of their brick and mortar stores, at least for a while. To include that, if you're going more online, you need a cybersecurity piece. So we also have put a lot of resources out into the community with subject matter experts on cybersecurity. And now, of course, there's still a lot of people that are interested in various levels of innovation, especially at our technology SBDCs. So they, under those CARES grants, we're also able to invest more heavily and have been investing more heavily in resources and subject matter experts that are dealing specifically with innovation as well as technology transfer. So yes, all of that has actually been put on steroids in many ways under the CARES Act and under these additional grants that we have been given to get out to the communities.
Joann, what about the Mbda?
Sure. So Mbda at our business centers, they have had to really triple down on helping businesses that have been impacted by COVID. Many of the services that they're providing are above and beyond, of course, what they would normally have provided. A lot of them really deal with a lot of fundamentals, honestly. Putting together their financial packages, notably, I want to just talk about when the question related to COVID and the PPP program that was let to support these businesses. Many of them just didn't know how to apply. They didn't have the resources that were available to go after the PPP funding, and the Mbda business centers have done a really phenomenal job at helping those firms that have been displaced or impacted heavily by COVID-19 and other disruptions. And so we don't necessarily have a program that's titled Fast Track. I have worked with the Fast Track program that was offered by the SBA in the past. There was a Fast Track program for another initiative that I'm very familiar with. But what we are doing on a fast track, if you will, unofficially, a program is going out of our way and, again, intentionally helping those firms with whatever help they need to access the PPP, as well as to get their businesses back up and running.
And as for the USPTO, there are several initiatives that have been put in place to both help those that were already in the process of seeking protection and relieving deadlines that would otherwise be troublesome. And there's some initiatives about COVID-related inventions. So rather than spend our last 10 minutes on that, they're on the website. They're easy to find and well listed out there. So you could go through those. We've got one perfect question to wrap up the last 10 minutes, kind of for everybody to weigh in on. And it's, what do you recommend a new inventor armed with an idea do as a first step, or possible series of first steps? And what do your agencies offer? So now you get to play role of counselor. Where do you steer people? So Joann, how about we start with you?
Sure. Okay, sure. So if it was a company that was in advanced manufacturing or exporting, I would certainly first, this feels like a trick question, Wayne. I have to tell you that of course I would have them to consult with our local USPTO or regional office representative to obtain the first-hand counsel and advice of the experts in that field, but also to reiterate the point that you made earlier with regard to making certain that they're aware of the resources on the ground at libraries and to try to obtain connection with the local attorney there in their state, local, regional area, wherever they're located, to obtain assistance.
Perfect.
Let me jump in here and take a maybe surprising view for government and not necessarily point you immediately directly to our resources, but highly encourage you to do a self-audit on what your strengths are as an inventor, as a business leader, as an entrepreneur, and outline where your weaknesses are. Is it in marketing? Is it legal? And being very certain where the gaps are that you need to address to bring this from an idea to market. There is no shortage of ideas out there. It takes great discipline and huge amount of work and tenacity to withstand the hurdles that you're going to face. However, the good news now is that we need you more now than ever. We are entering a time in our economy, a time around the world right now where businesses are going to be critical to help us rebound after this pandemic. So there's going to be, what that means for you then is there's going to be a great appetite to unlock capacity through our entrepreneurs. The team members that I mentioned, the partners that we have, the universities, HBCUs, business incubators, all of them are going to be doing their best to enable people like you. So be humble enough to understand your strengths and humble enough to ask for help, because there's going to be a ton of help out there. You just got to be willing to ask for it and understand where you need the help. That's my 2 cents. Thanks.
So with the SBDCs and the SBA, we obviously we have a lot of those resources built into our programs because a lot of it is really what we do. And as Craig was saying, you know, look at your strengths and look at your weaknesses. A lot of our business advisors are actually trained to help you tease those out. So a lot of times when people come in with a great idea, they may not have a lot of business acumen, at least at first. A business advisor will actually sit down with you and plot through different things. Well, how much capital do you really need to get something going? You know, how viable could it be? You know, the types of resources that you have. I mean, they'll actually help you walk through any of your strengths and weaknesses and help you unlock things that you may not have seen along that path. Then they'll help you build out your initial business plan to see, you know, if in fact it is a truly viable thing. And similar to something that Craig mentioned as well is that small business needs you more than ever. The American economy needs you more than ever. A lot of the metrics that we had built into the CARES Act with all of the money we got through PPP was obviously built to keep as many people that were employed by small business to keep them employed. But one of the things that we're already starting to see more and more is SBDCs are telling me that quite a few people are coming to them with new ideas. So even though we're still well into this pandemic, unfortunately, there are a lot of entrepreneurs that are already seeing opportunities for the next phase of our economy. And it's actually an amazing thing to watch and to see how innovative people are and how innovative small businesses are, that they're not just trying to protect what they have, but they're already seeing opportunities and openings for new things as we move through this pandemic to reopening the economy and frankly to a new economy. So that's one of the things that I wasn't expecting to see as early as we have seen, but we're actually seeing it throughout the country. And that's, you know, it's really a testament to American ingenuity.
And so I'll finish that question, and I'll point to a book I read probably every other year. I think I've read it since its very first version, and it's called The Entrepreneur's Guide to Law and Strategy. And it's more than I need to know most of the time, but it is a wonderful collection of Silicon Valley startup advice over the last 22 years, which has seen, you know, quite a roller coaster ride of good and bad practices. So that's a place I turn to for guidance, at least getting me pointed in the right direction. And I've used it my entire career, and I recommend that probably once a week to people to take a look at. It'll at least get you started in things like what Craig was mentioning on taking your assessment, thinking about what you need to do next. And then if you can go from there to all of these resources, you're going to be well prepared to use the experts that are available at all the agencies. So it lets you do a little bit of learning and thinking before you step in for that first meeting with an expert. So with that, I will leave the last question that apparently we've been hit a number of times. Everybody wants to write down the web address again. So for me, it's the uspto.gov. And there you can navigate your way to all the programs that I mentioned. Craig, how about your web address again?
EDA, that's standing for the Economic Development Administration, .gov/OIE/build to scale.
George?
I'm SBA.gov, SBA.gov. And frankly, you can also, whoever's on there, if you want to email me directly if you have a question or if you're not sure exactly, because we have so many different types of resources and business advisors, you can email me at george.koklanaris@sba.gov. I mean, I have my phone with me all the time and I'll respond.
And Joann, that lets you close us down. So leave it to you.
Thank you, Wayne. And Mbda, Minority Business Development Agency, our address is mbda.gov. And at our website, you will learn all about all the programs that I talked about at the top end of my presentation. We have a plethora of resources and, again, resource partners, upcoming events and activities that can help you to grow your business to size and scale both domestically and internationally. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Well, I would like to say thank you to Wayne, George, Lindsay, and Joann. That was awesome. We learned a lot. And I'm sure you will be getting some questions from our listeners and our attendees. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.
Sure.